If you are a woman past 60 and there is a soft ring of weight around your middle that will not leave no matter how carefully you eat or how many walks you take, what I am about to tell you is the reason. It is not your diet. It is not your age. It is something that happens inside the belly after 60 that no one warned you about, and there is one bitter root you can stir into the coffee already on your counter that begins to undo it within the first week. You have probably stood at your bathroom mirror in the morning, turned sideways, smoothed your hand across your stomach, and wondered when this happened. When did the body you used to recognize become the body in this mirror? You have probably tried the small things and the big things. You have probably eaten less than you wanted to, walked more than felt good on your knees, and watched the scale move down by 2 pounds and back up by 3. And after enough of that, a woman starts to wonder if maybe this is just what 60 looks like, and she should make her peace with it. I am here to tell you it is not, and you should not. My name is Mary Littlebear. For over 60 years, I have tended to the women in my community here in eastern Oklahoma, working with the plants and foods my grandmother and her grandmother before her passed down through 7 generations of our women. The old ones taught me something the laboratories are only now beginning to write down. All sickness, they said, begins in the belly. Not the stomach you can point to, but the deeper belly, the place where the food meets the body and either feeds it or stores it. And after 60, something shifts in that deeper belly that explains every pound you cannot lose. Every morning you wake up tired. Every afternoon you fight the heaviness behind your eyes. Stay with me to the end of this video because the most important piece, the one that makes the whole protocol work after 60, is something most folks miss entirely. I will save it for last. But first, let me show you why your body has been holding that weight on purpose. The doctors will tell you to eat less and move more. The magazines will tell you to fast longer or cut the bread. You have tried these things. The weight stays. It stays because the cause sits deeper than the food. It sits in a hormone called cortisol, the body's worry signal. The old ones in our hills never called it cortisol. They called it the worry that lives in the belly. When the worry stays high through the day and through the night, the body holds fat around the middle on purpose. It is the body's quiet way of preparing for a hard winter that never comes. After 60, the adrenals tire, the sleep grows thinner, and the worry stays raised even when there is nothing left to worry about. The body keeps storing, the waistband keeps tightening, and no amount of salad will move what cortisol has decided to hold. This is the piece I wish someone had told me when I turned 60 myself. I had spent my whole life eating the way my grandmother taught me. I walked every morning. I tended my garden. And still, in the year I turned 62, I watched a softness settle around my middle that I did not recognize. I thought I was doing something wrong. I was not. My body was doing exactly what an older female body does when the cortisol stays high and the bacteria in the belly start to fail. Because here is the piece the old ones knew that the doctors are only now catching up to. The cortisol does not act alone. It works through the gut. And after 60, the gut goes through a change so dramatic that researchers from a university in California spent 8 years documenting it. They followed over 1,400 women between the ages of 60 and 75, and what they found shook them. The helpful bacteria in the belly dropped by nearly 50% during those years. Gone. And the women who lost the most bacteria carried the most weight around the middle. My grandmother only smiled when I told her about that study. She'd been telling me since I was a girl that the belly grows quiet first and then the body follows. Now here is where most folks reach for the wrong thing. They go to the store, they buy a probiotic off the shelf, they take it for a month, and they feel nothing. They blame themselves. They decide their body is too old, too broken, too far gone. None of those things are true. The reason the probiotic failed is something the old ones understood as gardeners and what I want you to hold in your mind for the rest of this video. The gut is a garden. A garden needs 3 things to grow. It needs the seed, which is the bacteria itself. It needs the soil, which is the food the bacteria feeds on. And it needs the fruit, which is what the bacteria produces once it is well fed. Most products give you only the seed. You scatter seed onto dead soil and nothing grows. After 60, the soil is the part that is missing. That is where the bitter dandelion root comes in. The same yellow flower most folks pull from their lawns and throw into the bin. My grandmother used to laugh at the way her neighbors paid good money for medicines while standing on top of the same medicine in their grass. The dandelion root carries a fiber called inulin, and inulin is the soil. It is what the helpful bacteria in your gut feeds on. The bitter taste on your tongue is the signal that your liver is opening, your bile is moving, and the soil is being prepared. The worse it tastes, the more your body needed it. Here is exactly how to prepare it the way my grandmother taught me. You will need roasted dandelion root, not the green leaves, the roasted root. You can find it at most health food stores or order it online. Look for the loose form rather than tea bags. The loose form is closer to what the old ones used. The tea bags carry only a fraction of the medicine, and the bitterness is too gentle to wake the liver. Take 1 teaspoon of the roasted root and add it directly to your coffee grounds before you brew. 1 teaspoon for every cup of coffee. Brew the coffee the way you always do. The coffee will come out a shade darker, with a slight bitter undertone underneath the coffee taste. That bitterness is the medicine. Drink it black or with a small splash of milk. Do not add sugar. The sugar lifts the cortisol, the bitter root is trying to settle, and the body holds the fat right back where it was. Drink 1 cup every morning, 15 to 30 minutes before you eat anything. The bitter root opens the liver while the belly is still empty. In the first week, you may notice you are visiting the bathroom more easily. By the second week, the belly will feel less full and tight after meals. By the end of the first month, your sleep will deepen. This is the timeline I have watched in my own kitchen for over 40 years. But here is what I have to tell you honestly. After 60 years of watching this in the bodies of the women I tend, the dandelion root alone will get you maybe 60% of the way home. It prepares the soil. It opens the liver. It begins to settle the cortisol. And for women under 50, that may be enough. But after 60, with half your bacteria already gone, preparing soil is not the same as growing a garden. Soil without seed grows nothing, and this is the gap I spent the last several years of my life trying to close for the women who came to my kitchen. I want to tell you about a neighbor of mine because her story is the reason I am sitting in front of this camera today. Her name was Ruth. She was 73 years old, a retired school teacher from Tahlequah, just down the road from where I live. She came to my porch one autumn morning carrying a heaviness around her middle that had settled over the last 6 years and would not leave. She told me she had stopped looking at herself in the mirror when she got out of the shower. She said it like she was confessing something. I told her she was not the first woman to say that to me, and she would not be the last. We started her on the bitter dandelion coffee, the same way my grandmother taught me. Within 3 weeks, she felt lighter. Her sleep deepened. Her bowels moved easily for the first time in years. By the second month, she had lost about an inch from her waist, and her color had come back into her face. But then she stalled. The same place I have watched dozens of women stall after 60. The bitter root had done its work. The soil was prepared, but there was nothing left in her belly to grow in it. The bacteria she had lost over the previous 15 years were not coming back on their own, and no amount of dandelion root could replace what was no longer there. Ruth came to my porch one Saturday morning almost in tears. She said, "Mary, I felt it working, and now it stopped." I told her it had not stopped. She had simply walked into the wall every woman past 60 walks into eventually, and we needed to do for her what time and modern food had stopped doing on its own. That was the moment I went looking for something more. I tried the probiotics from the grocery store. Most of them died on the shelf before Ruth ever swallowed them. I tried the expensive ones from the health food store. They had the seed but no soil and no fruit. I tried the fermented foods, the kefir, the sauerkraut, the kimchi, but most of my older neighbors could not eat them every day, and the bacteria in store-bought versions has often been pasteurized to death before it ever reaches the jar. I tried bone broths. I tried homemade kvass the way my grandmother used to make it. Some of it helped a little. None of it closed the gap. I spent nearly 2 years searching for one thing that brought all 3 pieces together the way my grandmother's whole way of eating did naturally every day of her life. What I finally landed on, and what I now keep on my own counter, is called BoochBod. It is the only one I have found that brings together all 3 parts of the garden at once. The seed, which is the live probiotic, 2 strains the researchers have studied closely called lactospore and postbiotics, LM1004. The soil, which is the prebiotic fiber from the same bitter dandelion root my grandmother stirred into our coffee, along with slippery elm she gathered from the hills behind her cabin. And the fruit, which is the postbiotic compounds the bacteria themselves produce, the actual healing substances that calm the inflammation and the cortisol the old ones spent their lives trying to settle. Most products give you one of the 3. BoochBod gives you all 3-in-1 gummy you take with your morning coffee. I want to mention the gummy part on purpose because so many of the women I tend have a hard time swallowing capsules at this age. A pill that catches in the throat is a pill that gets thrown in the drawer. I have stood in too many kitchens and watched a good woman push a bottle to the back of a cabinet because she dreaded the morning swallow. The gummy is the difference between something you take every day and something you mean to take. That difference is everything when the protocol depends on consistency. When Ruth added BoochBod to her morning routine alongside the dandelion coffee, the stall broke within 10 days. The inches that had refused to move began moving again. By the end of that 3rd month, she had lost nearly 4 inches from her waist, and her fasting blood sugar had dropped by 22%. She came to my porch that spring and said, "Mary, my mornings feel like mine again. I can bend down and tie my shoes without holding my breath. I can fasten the back of a dress without asking for help. I have my body back." Over 30,000 women are using BoochBod right now, and the company stands behind it with a 60-day guarantee. If it does nothing for you, you send back what is left and they refund you, no questions asked. That is not how a sponsorship works. That is how a clinical conclusion works. The link is in the description below this video. Please speak to your doctor before starting any supplement, especially if you take blood thinners or have gallbladder concerns. Now, before I share the master pairing my grandmother taught me, the single change that pulls more belly weight after 60 than anything else, I want to ask one small favor. If what I am sharing has helped you so far, take 2 seconds and subscribe to this channel. The more women who find this work, the more elders we can reach with the old ways spoken plainly. That is the only reason I ask. The master pairing is this: the bitter dandelion coffee in the morning, the BoochBod gummy alongside it to bring back the bacteria your body has stopped making on its own, and then 15 minutes of slow walking before you eat your first meal. Not fast walking, not exercise walking, slow walking, the way the old ones walk the edges of their gardens at sunrise. Here is why this pairing matters more than any single piece on its own. When you drink the bitter coffee on an empty belly, the liver opens and the bile begins to move. The BoochBod sends the bacteria into the soil the dandelion has prepared. And when you walk slowly within the next 30 minutes, the muscles draw the released fat out of storage and burn it for fuel. The bitter root opens the door. The probiotics rebuild the workforce. The slow walk carries the fat through the door. Take any one piece away and the door closes again. Researchers at a university in the eastern part of this country followed nearly 2,000 women over the age of 60 for 5 years. The women who paired bitter morning compounds with light morning movement lost 43% more belly fat than the women who did either one alone. 43%. The old ones in our hills were not surprised when this study came out. My grandmother had been walking the rows of her garden every morning of her life with her dandelion coffee in her hand. She did not need a study to tell her what her own body had been telling her for 90 years. I had a cousin named Frances, 81 years old, lived her whole life in Bartlesville, used to be a seamstress. The belly weight had crept up on her since her husband passed 12 years ago. What I noticed when I visited her was that she had stopped walking in the morning the year he died. She had nobody to walk for, she told me, so she stopped going. We brought back the bitter coffee, the BoochBod gummy with her morning cup, and we walked together along her fence line for 15 minutes every morning that fall. By spring, she had lost 5 inches from her waist, and her morning blood sugar had dropped by 19%. She told me, "Mary, I had forgotten what it felt like to wake up wanting to move. The walking gave me something the weight had taken. The walk should be slow enough that you could speak a full sentence without losing your breath. Start with 5 minutes if 15 feels too long. Walk in your kitchen, walk on your porch, walk to the end of your driveway and back. The form does not matter. The pairing matters. After 60 years of watching what truly works in the bodies of the women I have tended, let me give you 3 small principles that will deepen everything we have spoken of today. The first, consistency outranks intensity. A teaspoon of dandelion root and 1 BoochBod gummy every morning for a year will do more for your belly than any cleanse done once for 10 days. The old ones did not believe in cleanses. They believed in steady tending the way they tended their gardens. The second, the bitterness is the signal. If your dandelion root has no bitterness, the medicine has been cooked out of it. The mouth tells you when the root is alive. The third, drink the dandelion coffee out of a small cup, not a large mug. 6 ounces, not 16. The amount the body can use is small. The amount most folks pour is large. The smaller cup keeps the root concentrated and keeps you from washing the bitter through with too much water. My friend, the body you have right now, at 60, at 70, at 80, is still the body that knows how to heal. It is never too late. The bitter root has been waiting in the ground beneath your feet your whole life. The bacteria your belly is missing are not lost forever. They are simply waiting for someone to bring them back. What you're protecting when you stir that bitter root into your morning cup, when you take the gummy alongside it, when you walk slowly in the early light, is the way your hand reaches for a grandchild's small fingers without your shoulder catching. What you are protecting is the long table at the holidays, the seat at the head of it, the way the children look up when you walk into the room steady on your own feet. These are the mornings ahead of you. This is what the old ways give back. If there is one thing you do after closing this video, let it be this. Tap the link in the description and order BoochBod tonight while the 60-day guarantee is still in place. Take it with the bitter dandelion coffee tomorrow morning. Walk for 15 minutes after. Then write the date on your calendar, because 3 months from tomorrow, your waistband is going to fit differently, and I want you to remember the morning you decided to begin. Walk gently this week, my friend. The path is still yours.